It's your boy Matt here. It is currently the 5th of August 2025. This video is a continuation of a lot of the political shenanigans I've had to deal with. We're returning back to NDIS and I'm going to describe sort of what you need to have for an effective positive behaviour support company to work and what has been offered and I have seen in different organisations such as Butterfish Services and Humanity Health Group, particularly the Care Squared Kids brand. I would like to preface this with saying the biggest issue I have is the Uber health model. Because what happened to me is that I got exploited by some very nasty people. It was exploitation. I've been the victim of a workplace incident, workplace health and safety incident, and it's had a very prolonged impact on my life. I've been out of work, and instead of because of negligence, that is what has happened. And I can't stress that enough. They failed to provide a safe working environment, and that is why I'm in this situation. So, Butterfish Services, I'll go back through my career a bit. That was my first PBS job. That was working for a man called Donald Macaskill. I found out after working with him for a little bit that he was a criminal and a con man. And I ended up being put in places where I was having to do positive behaviour support, which he wasn't able to facilitate. And if I'm honest, my skill level was pretty low back then. Really, I look at some of the methods and my approaches to the practice. I'm not even sure some of them, I think we actually may have harmed some clients because not to any severe extent, but the ABA, which Applied Behaviour Analysis, which Donald Macaskill was trying to implement, was it's dangerous if it's being implemented by someone who is a narcissist and a sociopath. And Donald Macaskill is those things, just straight up. He's very mentally unwell. He's an incredibly nasty individual. It doesn't matter what situations he's in. There's this halo effect people get when they're working in healthcare, because once you're in healthcare, people might see you as like a good person. If you're providing services to the community, people will think that you're good for doing that. No, that's not what these people are like. Actually, what happens is that people who are particularly bad, they're attracted to these positions. And Donald is one of those people. So I worked there. I had got surgery on my hand while I was working there. At the same time, I ended up realizing he was batshit crazy and I left. And when I left, I had no work to complete. There was no work that we were being given at Butterfish Services. So I had no clients to see. And instead of sort of taking responsibility for his failure as a businessman, because he is a failure of a businessman, he can't look at a balance sheet, he can't make managerial decisions, he decided that I was the cause of these problems. At the same time, he'd had 2 staff walkouts because no one wanted to be around him because he's an obnoxious cunt. And that's Donald Macaskill. So I went from that, and then I worked at Care Squared Kids after a man called Fred Sashini hired me. Now that interview with Fred, it was a very strange interview. I haven't had an interview like it. What he said was, hey, you never really know if anyone's going to be any good at a job, so I'm just going to give you a job, and what's going to happen, and we'll, whatever happens. That was how the interview went. He hasn't presented it like that. He's presented it like I was a faked ability or something. I was very open with my level of training when I was talking to my manager, Stephanie, who Stephanie also knows Donald. A lot of people in PBS know Donald. He's a guy that you don't forget. And I explained to her my situation, my level of training. But what I am very good at is dealing with very hectic and messy situations. I'm talented at it. I've been dealing with people such as myself who've had to deal with a large amount of instability become sort of good chaos coordinators, and I am amazing at dealing with situations where things can get hectic. I get off on it. It excites me. It's something which resonates with the core of my being. That's why I do things such as combat sports. That's why I've broken parts of 2 different bones in my body, only 2. Skateboarding, that's my thing. But the problem is with this is that there was this Uber Health model, and Fred Sashini was very aware that I was a junior psych. He was very aware that I was being trained into the profession. He was very aware that I was a junior positive behaviour support practitioner. And from this, the caseload I got was sort of directed from that. Now, while working, so let's describe what you need to have an effective positive behaviour support business. You need to have, first of all, an office. You need to have a place where you got everyone together so you can keep track of your team. It's the same with social workers and child safety, and it's best to think of the kind of work I do as in that kind of line, as a child safety officer, AMBO, that kind of thing. It's that level of stress. And in those positions, what you want to do, excuse me mate, is you want to create a safe working environment. You want to create a situation where everyone, where they have interconnected support for each other. Now, the way it works, there's a metaphor called the iceberg. I think the dam metaphor, that's it. The dam metaphor of trauma. So, if you're, say, in emergency services, if you're an AMBO, and you're going to, each day you're seeing terrible things, you're dealing with very stressful situations, the support you have from your colleagues is very important. They develop camaraderie between each other. It's the same with the police. That's why they're infamously known for covering up each other's crimes and those things. But same with AMBO, same with a whole lot of different industries. You can't do this work with the person next to you trying to undermine you. And I spent my entire time at Care Squared Kids dealing with hectic situations while people were trying to undermine me. And really were not interested in my health at all. They really weren't. They weren't interested in the health of the clients either, because they abandoned them, and the previous psych they had doing the work did a shit job. When I came in, I think I'm good at my job. I think I'm far better than my years of experience would indicate. I think I've got a knack and a little bit of a talent for what I do. But I think that's the extent of how good I think I am, is because the previous psych was just very mediocre. The clients hadn't made any therapeutic progress. They hadn't been any good case management. That's part of what you have to do in the NDIS if you're a psych. It's the best way I can describe it. There's a job in the Navy called being a divisional officer. It's sort of like a HR role. You kind of have to, you're responsible for the people who are kind of under your command, basically, and you need to make sure that they're taken care of. It's the same in the NDIS. Often the support, I've ended up training several different support coordinators on just how to do the basics of their job. Because often you'll find that there'll be gaps in services. There'll be all these things which aren't being provided or can't be provided. The reason why is because the support coordinator hasn't done their job. And they also don't have the same authority that healthcare practitioners do. It's strange. The support coordinator does not have very much authority at all in the NDIS. They're closer to like a lawyer or a paralegal. That's the best way to see them. They're a paralegal, and they'll have, say, 3 or 4 different healthcare professionals telling them what to do. It's a very difficult job. I have a lot of respect for it. I've met some support coordinators who really own it, and they are able to take charge of the healthcare professionals. A lot just can't. So, yeah. Returning to my point, so you need to have the group together. You need to have everyone interconnected and supportive of each other. Now, what happened with me is that I was constantly being hounded by Donald. So Donald, he kind of spat the dummy a bit, and he started sending emails and things to a whole heap of different people, basically gossiping, saying that I stole money from him and stuff. He currently owes me around $2,000 in unpaid wages, and I'd very much like to receive it, Donald. Can you give me my money, please? You owe me it. So, waiting on that. But he, where was I talking about? Oh yeah. So I was talking about the iceberg metaphor before. I don't think I finished it. The iceberg, not the iceberg, waterfall. So what happens is that all the trauma which accumulates in your work, it kind of floods out when some critical event happens. And that critical event is often where the people who are meant to be supporting you stab you in the back. That is what happened with me. I was stabbed in the back by my management, and I was constantly in these situations where they weren't supportive. I was dealing with caseloads which were far beyond their competence to be able to manage an employee who had, and I was dealing with a large amount of legal liability with people who kind of just didn't care. They're very happy. The entire point of a business is to reduce your liabilities and your money going out, and increase the amount of money going in. And the way they do that is that they try and reduce the safety and reduce the legal risks that they expose themselves to. And what they do is that they increase the legal liability on the employee, and they try and make the employee the part of the system which breaks legally and the person who can be sued. That was my experience when I was doing support work. That was my experience at Henny's Health Group. We never imprison management. We always go for the person down the bottom. And I had to constantly try and find ways to defend myself, because I knew that I was dealing with a whole lot of liability with people who were just ignorant about it, uninterested, if I'm honest, a bit sexist. So I had this, and over time while working there, my health deteriorated as a result of the stress and the abuse which I was receiving. It was a wearing down, and both my performance, I suppose maybe the quality of my work didn't so much decrease, but the deadlines took longer. You don't get billed more for a person who's suicidal and you've had to talk down several times and coordinated the network for, because they keep fucking killing themselves, and the people who's meant to be in charge of that situation isn't taking charge of it, right? And you have to do it. You don't get paid more for that. It's still billed at the same hourly rate. It's the same hourly rate for that as dealing with cute kids doing happy hands, which is what Care Squared Kids did. So I was placed in this situation where I'm having to meet the same KPIs, do the same work, while dealing with potentially life and death situations, and a few very real life and death situations. At the same time, I've got these people gunning for me. Now afterwards, I appropriately made a workers' compensation claim. I'm entitled to workers' compensation because I'm experiencing the follow-on from a workplace injury, a psychological injury, because my employer did not provide a psychologically safe work environment. I was the junior psych. I'm the person who's meant to be shepherded into the discipline. There's no issue with me working on complex cases. I love that shit. But I was placed in a situation where my management were not able to provide the appropriate direction for it. And that's my main thing I want to communicate today. I'm sure that they have found a different interpretation that they can make. I'm the person who's lived through this experience, and this is what happened. Fred Sashini is an absolute sack of shit. Amanda Mazzoni probably has not been honest with herself about the situation. Put plainly, I think her and I may have gotten along better if we had worked in the same building. My direct manager, was not cut out for working with complex cases, and she was not she was just not at all sympathetic to what it's like being a male in this field. Not sympathetic at all. So yeah, that's it. Have a nice day, everyone. Fuck you, Fred.